Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's poppin', Fantasy Champs? Welcome to Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always, and this is our first full week of 4 episodes of content. Today, we're going to do starts and sits. Tomorrow, we're going to do trade targets. So, if you want to know who to trade for before Sunday happens, we're just going to offer it up to you on a platter and serve it to you, and then go and try to buy them. But anyway, yes, today we have starts and sits. What's poppin', Rick?
What's going on, bro?
Nothing much. Just chilling.
Excited for week 2?
Yeah, dude. I get to watch football tonight. I'm already in the season, so mentally it's just there already.
Dude,
I'm already complaining about Monday Night Football. Wouldn't want anything more in the world.
I know. You know it's the NFL season when we spend like 10 minutes prior to the show of you talking about how bad ESPN is.
Yeah, it's pretty much every show, though.
Yeah, true.
I should stop.
That is true.
I tweeted this morning something about it.
You just hate
Legit,
it, man.
It was like it's 4 days after the fact, and I'm tweeting about it.
You know, does this have to do with them and their relationship with LeBron James?
Yes, totally, 100%. I said, forgot to tweet on Monday, but the MNF crew is just as bad as ever. Give a Monday Night Football to CBS, Fox, NBC, literally anyone. ESPN is garbage. Shout out. I don't think you'll ever
go to ESPN.
On ESPN, yeah, no.
I'm keeping my mouth shut just in case. You know?
He's like, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying that I could make it better, but I know a million other people who could make it better. And ESPN just doesn't do it. So we get Chris Berman and Booger at halftime, and pregame and postgame. No, actually, they shift right to that bald guy. Can't remember his name.
Oh, Scott Van Pelt.
Scott Van Pelt. Yeah, he's pretty good. I like him, but he has nothing to do with football. So.
No, it's just like his own show, right?
Yes, pretty much. But anyway, besides destroying Monday Night Football, we have starts and sits for week 2. Week 2 starts and sits. Starts and sits week 2. Before we do that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter at the FFChamps, on Instagram at the Fantasy Champions, and on TikTok at the FFChamps. I believe that's the right handle. So just go. Did I miss one?
Yeah, dude. No, I think that's it.
Oh, okay. All right. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, please leave a review, share this podcast with your friends, and then go to YouTube and watch the video as well, and then subscribe and click the bell for notifications, so you know as soon as we post a podcast that I'm not hating on YouTube because I love YouTube, but like why? Why do you make it so that people can subscribe, which is basically a meaningless thing, and then you have to click the bell just to get notified? It used to be that you subscribed and you got notifications because you subscribed.
Right. It doesn't really make much sense, to be honest.
But either way, you still got to click the bell for notifications. Then like and comment down below you're a guy who you're starting this week no matter what, even if they're in a bad matchup, a guy that you're like, you know what, I believe in this player, I'm going to start him. Goes against common thought processes.
No matter what.
So we'll leave that in the comments below. Are you ready to get started on starts and sits, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this is going to be interesting.
Interesting?
Yes. I guess so. But anyway, we're going to start with our starts, go to our sits. Like I said, break it down by position. Let's start off with quarterback, Jameis the famous Winston at Carolina. So Rick expressed some concern. So I'm going to let Rick play devil's advocate when I'm done. If that's fine with you, Rick.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So Jameis Winston is going up against Carolina. Now, Carolina, I didn't pull up those numbers, but how many fantasy points did they give up to Zach Wilson last week?
I think like it in most leagues it would be 18.
Okay, yeah. So they did a pretty good job on I was gonna say Russell Wilson. They did a good job on Zach Wilson, but he still threw 258 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Jameis Winston is coming off a very good game against the Green Bay Packers. He was put into good scoring situations frequently, so didn't throw a lot of passing yards, but still had 5 passing touchdowns in the game. I think because of the positive game script, it held the Green Bay Packers, not the Green Bay Packers, held the New Orleans Saints to, 20 passes total in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't pass very much in that first game, but he showed that he could do well. Now, I don't know what New Orleans is going to do to the Carolina Panthers. I don't know. I mean, Green Bay just played so bad. Do you think Carolina can do slightly better than Green Bay last week?
Yeah, no, they can, but
I don't know if it's going to be.
The Saints are definitely the favorites to win still. Like they're
the Saints
expected to win, but
it depends on if Jameis gets like this full, like if he is able to throw 35 to 40 passes, that would make me more comfortable.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you're going to play devil's advocate on the Carolina Panthers. But I think the Carolina Panthers could be a decent matchup for Jameis Winston, especially after giving up 258 yards and 2 touchdowns to a rookie quarterback in his NFL debut. So I'm thinking that you start Jameis the Famous against Carolina this week.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's definitely not a bad option. It was slightly concerned because of Carolina's defense that I think has improved a lot over the last year, especially the last 2 years. I think it was 2020 draft. So last draft, not this past one, but the one before that, they took all defensive players through 7 rounds.
Yeah.
Then this past year, I think they went not crazy heavy on defense, but I know they at least used their first round pick on JC Horn, who apparently played pretty well in his first game. So their defense is very young, but they have a lot of talent on defense. So some people think that they can be a top 10 defense this year, but some people also think Green Bay had a top 10 defense and they got destroyed by the Saints. So as long as Winston can be efficient still, and I think it will be a closer game, so maybe that's a good thing because he throws the ball more. Because I don't think if he throws the ball 20 times again, I don't think he's going to put up 30 fantasy points or whatever he did. Yeah, like he'll have less points, but I don't think he's going to throw the ball that much. I think he'll throw it at least like closer to 30 times, and that'll be good for Winston.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Let's move to the running back start of the week. Now, if you drafted this man in the second round, I would think that you're starting him. But after his week 1 performance, there's spills a little bit concern. His name is Naji Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Naji played literally 100% of his offensive snaps this week. Like 100%. Not just like 80%, 70%, which is usually, 60 to 80% is usually what you're looking for a workhorse. They were just like, forget about all the other running backs. We're just going to stick Naji in there. 100% of the offensive snaps. Against the Buffalo Bills defense, he struggled. I watched the game, and there were moments where he showed that he's talented and he could be really good. But in this first game against that really tough defense and a not so good Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line, he was only able to rack up 2.8 yards a carry and
it's gross.
5 total fantasy points. So, and half PPR. So, he did have 19 touches or 19 opportunities in the game, 17 touches, I should say. But I think in this upcoming game that he has against the Raiders, it's going to be much better for him. The Raiders are a better matchup running the football. I can't remember how many yards they gave up against the Baltimore Ravens last week, but it was
a lot.
It was a lot. So they don't necessarily have the best run stopping attack or the best defense. In fact, if you watched Monday Night Football, speaking of, they did present a statistic where they were talking about how the Raiders, since they traded, Khalil Mack, they have had the least amount of sacks in the NFL. So that's great.
That's unfortunate.
Their defensive line really isn't the best.
It's not great.
And so I think according to PFF, The Raiders allowed the 5th most fantasy points to running backs in week 1. And with Harris's heavy workload coming into this week, we know he's going to get a lot of snaps. We know he's going to get a lot of opportunities. I feel like this is a perfect week for the Naji Harris breakout train to begin. So I would start him this week. Don't get nervous about those 5 points. Just start him. Don't trade him. Don't panic. Just start Naji Harris.
Yeah, this one should be an obvious one, but people obviously overreact in fantasy, especially after week 1. We've definitely seen some overreactions in leagues that we've been in. And I think Naji Harris is one of them where people are considering benching him because of his awful week 1. They're just like, oh, he's not a good player. Yeah, the opportunity still stunk. He's just not a good player. Going to be on a bench. Look, it was his first game. And yeah, I mean, we told you in the offseason efficiency was not going to be Naji Harris' strong suit. What it was, though, was opportunity. And that's still going to be the case against the Raiders. And it is a much easier matchup. Going into the season, the Raiders were considered one of the worst run defenses in the league. And after week 1, it still looks like that. Their pass rush was okay, but they definitely gave up some big plays on the ground. So it's possible for Naji Harris to come out this week and have a big week. It kind of feels like his breakout game, like this is his chance, really.
Yeah.
And the opportunity, as you said, was still there. He had 100% of the snaps at running back in the first game. So I would expect Naji Harris to bounce back in a big way.
Agreed. At wide receiver, this is interesting. I almost felt a little bit gross about putting this man on the list, but he had too much of a good game last week to not.
And it's too good of a matchup as well.
And it's too good of a matchup to not put him on this list, and it's Mike Williams. Now, Mike Williams last week had 22 fantasy points. The big thing about Mike Williams and I've been a Mike Williams guy for a while, just quietly, because he always sucks. But I love the way Mike, when I talk about in the offseason, the rookie wide receivers and how I want them to be, over 6'2", over 210 pounds, like those big, physical, fast wide receivers. That's what Mike Williams is. But it never converted. And it's because Phillip Rivers was his quarterback and couldn't throw down the field. Last season was riddled with injuries for him, and he comes into this year. At that point, he's been in the league for 5 years? And I was just kind of like, I'm done. I'm done waiting. So I hadn't talked about him and hadn't put him on any draft. I mean, he was a good value, but I hadn't drafted him in any leagues. But he comes out week 1 and gets 12 freaking targets, which is something that I don't think he's ever done in his career. Have 12 targets in a game.
I don't know.
2019, he had 13 targets against Denver. But he comes out this year and he has 12 targets. He catches 8 of them for 82 yards and a touchdown. Against Washington, who is considered a pretty good, I would say a pretty good defense.
Yeah, definitely. Top 5 in the pass.
He had a 26% target share in that offense, which means that he was getting targeted by our good friend Justin Herbert. And he's going up against the Dallas Cowboys this week, who consequently gave up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers last week. So I feel like at this point, Mike Williams is a guy that you definitely need in your starting lineup. Like if you need a flex play or even a wide receiver 2 on the week, and you don't have one, and you have Mike Williams on your bench, you're like, should I start him? Should I not? So I start him. I think he's a great play this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it does seem kind of gross because he's Mike Williams, but he had a great week 1, like you said. Most targets he's had since 2019, which is very impressive. And he's going up against the Cowboys, whose secondary is just so bad. And the top corner for them, Trayvon Diggs. Is it
Don't make fun of Trayvon.
No. But he's going to be up against Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
So we saw what Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown did to the second and third corner for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense for Mike Williams to have another big week. And if you're considering on who to start, he should definitely be an option. And I think he's in for another really good week.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about the next guy, Noah Fant. Give us your thoughts on Noah Fant starting against Jacksonville this week.
Yeah, another good matchup for Noah Fant. I think he's ranked, let's see, 7, which is pretty high. Wow. Yeah, he had a decent week. But one of the things with Denver is with Jerry Judy out. I think after Jerry Judy went out, it seemed like Teddy Bridgewater was really targeting Noah Fant. And against Jacksonville is such an easy matchup. Mm-hmm. He ended up having 6 catches last week on 8 targets. I think he probably does the same thing against Jacksonville and could even be more efficient. We could see a touchdown from him. But Noah Fant's going to be really good pretty much rest of the season with that Jerry Judy injury. He becomes really Teddy Bridgewater's security blanket and go-to guy now, because I'm not sure the chemistry is there at Courtland Sutton. It might develop as the season goes on. We'll see. But as of week 1, at least, it was Noah Fant was Teddy Bridgewater's top target. So
yeah,
that's big, and he's got it obviously a very easy matchup. So again, good things for Noah Fant this week.
Yeah, definitely. With the loss of Jerry Judy, having Courtland Sutton and Fant is probably very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Noah, I think a stat that I saw is that he finished week 1 with the highest targets to the tight end position. The Broncos, Teddy Bridgewater did 33%.
Oh yeah.
So he targeted the tight end position this week more than any other team, and that includes the 19 from Darren Waller.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of percentage wise, how many pass attempts they had in the game, not 19 targets physically, but I think the Raiders threw it like 50 times. So
I guess that makes sense.
Something anyway. But he is going to get targeted out the wazoo, and he's going to get. I would think that he's going to get a ton of fantasy points in turn of that. The question is Denver's offense going to be good? And I don't know if that's a yes or a no.
Yeah.
They're going up against Jacksonville.
I mean, they were good last week against the Giants, and they're going up against the worst defense.
Yeah, probably. I mean, when you give up how many fantasy points? I mean, how many, not fantasy points, regular points. How many points did they give up to Houston? 40?
Yeah.
That's bad. Like, Houston was supposed to be the worst team in the NFL, and now they're in the top 16, Rick.
This could be a Javonte Williams breakout game.
It could be. But yeah, Jacksonville blows. So if there's any opportunity for the highest target share guy on the team to break out, have a good game, it would be Noah Fant.
Yeah, I agree.
You ready to move to the sits, my friend?
Yes.
All right, so Joe Burrow is an interesting one against Chicago. Chicago right now is getting a lot of heat for not having a very good game. Yeah, they're getting a lot of heat for not having a good game last week.
They got destroyed.
They got essentially destroyed. Joe Burrow is coming into this game. I still would think that this is a tough matchup for Joe Burrow because Chicago is still Chicago. They still have some of the best pass rushers in the league, and this offensive line for the Cincinnati Bengals, whatever you want to say about them, they are still not good. So I think they're going to get a lot of opportunities to pass rush Joe Burrow, and while I think Joe Burrow could still have a decent week, I think it's just safe to sit him because I think this is just going to be a scary situation to invest in. So if you're like, oh my God, I want to go after Joe Burrow this week, not that he had a great week last week, that you make you believe I want to start him. The numbers are a little bit wonky right now on the giving up fantasy points per game here to a certain position because, it's week 1. And we're really not going to get a great landscape of who's actually not good until like week 4. So
yeah,
Chicago is one of those teams that I would stick with, but Joe Burrow I would sit against Chicago.
Yeah. No, I think Burrow will be okay.
Yeah.
Like kind of what he did against the Vikings where he actually was very efficient, threw 261 yards and 2 touchdowns, but fantasy points wise, what was that, like 19 points?
Yeah, something like that.
So it's like he played pretty well, but still had 18.64.
Wow.
And then against a tougher defense in Chicago, like I think he'll play okay, like in obviously the real game, but he just won't put up huge fantasy points, maybe something like 15, 16, which isn't awful, but it's definitely not something you want to start, especially with some guys who are on really good matchups this week, who you can probably have on your team already, or you can pick up off the waiver wire for cheap. Like a Baker Mayfield against Houston, or Jameis Winston, obviously, against Carolina.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is playing Arizona. So there's some decent ones out there where Burrow probably you just want to sit this week.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's move to Mike Davis quickly. I can't stand Mike Davis.
You're telling me.
He's not good. He's not good. He's never been good. So, yeah. He's facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I feel like that's really all we need to say, considering that Ezekiel Elliott, who's one of the top 5 running backs in the NFL, scored a total of 5.9 fantasy points last week, I think in PPR, despite playing 84% of the snaps. Yes, Mike Davis went out and had 6 targets and 15 rushing attempts and 3 catches and whatever you want to say. He had a total of 18 opportunities. What was it? Was that 71 yards, 72 yards? But he had 3.27 yards per carry. His yards per catch totals weren't that great. And he didn't score a touchdown. I don't think there's going to be a lot of touchdown upside.
And that was against a good matchup.
That was against a good matchup, yeah. So, you see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and you see the terrible efficiency metrics and you smash them together. If they run this guy 15 to 16 times, I think it might look like Naji Harris against the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing, ignoring Mike Davis for a second, that Buccaneers defense is so good against the run. We obviously saw what they did to Zeke, like you said. And what do you think they'll do to a player like Mike Davis?
Absolutely.
it shouldn't be great.
Yeah.
I don't want to start him. I own him in one league, unfortunately, and it wasn't even by choice. And
you
have Jerry Judy in that
was
league.
By choice last year.
I think I picked him up because it's like a third. There's like 20 bench spots. It's in that league that we're in together. But
right.
I have him. I tried to trade him all off season. Nobody wanted him.
Nope.
And now I'm starting him because Jerry Judy's out, and I don't even want to start him this week against Buccaneers.
Yeah. It's a bad matchup. I'll say
it's disgusting. I don't think I'm going to start him. I think I'll start like Gabe Davis or Devontae Parker or something.
Yikes.
Yeah, I would over Mike Davis this week. I would rather start probably Devontae Parker.
Fair.
I don't think he's getting more than like 8 points.
Next up, wide receiver Robbie Anderson. This is a scary situation because coming into the season, a lot of people thought Robbie Anderson was going to end up being this big-time target. They just paid him a lot of money, and Sam Darnold used to play with him in New York. And you come into this game, and everyone's expecting a big target share, and he has a total of 3 targets, which is an 8% target share on the team. 8%. Good wide receivers finished with 25, 26, 27%. If you're starting Robbie Anderson expecting a big, production, or a lot of production, I should say, or a lot of target share, you're fooling yourself. You have a rookie wide receiver who's, technically speaking, the 3rd wide receiver on the team in Terrace Marshall come in. He wasn't efficient, don't get me wrong. But he caught 3 passes on 6 targets. He was out-targeted. He out-snapped Robbie Anderson, I believe. I'm not sure. I could be wrong on that. But either way, he had 1 touchdown, 1 catch in the game for 57 yards, which was a touchdown. And for me, it kind of reminds me of it's a situation where sometimes you play a player in your flex for touchdown upside, and I really don't see touchdown upside in Robbie Anderson's future next week, considering he already highly efficiently scored a touchdown against the Jets. Now, you would have expected him against one of the worst, in a game against his old team, one of the worst defenses in the NFL, to get a massive target share and have a really good game. And fantasy points wise, he had 12 fantasy points. So people are like, okay, he played well, but he only had 3 targets, 1 catch. And he's going up against New Orleans this week, who had a very, very good week last week against the wide receiver position. So I would suggest you sit Robbie Anderson this week and hold him out of your lineups.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The one thing I will say though, do you think Marshawn Lattimore is going to be on DJ Moore or Robbie Anderson?
He usually floats, so it really depends on what side of the field they put him on. But I would say, yeah, more than likely he's going to be on DJ Moore.
Yeah, because that would make me nervous for Moore, and that could open things for Robbie Anderson. But overall, I agree. It feels like they want Robbie Anderson to be the third receiver on this team, which is weird because they paid him that much money. Maybe they want to be like the Cowboys and just have three great receivers. But yeah, no, like even if Lattimore's on DJ Moore, I don't expect the Panthers offense to have a great week this week against the Saints. It'll probably be a lower scoring game, and the Saints will.
I mean, I'm rooting for Darnold.
Be a better offensive team.
I need him to throw to DJ Moore because I need those points.
Maybe some trash time points, dude. Who knows how the game goes? But yeah, I probably wouldn't start Robbie Anderson this week. There's just some better options with much better matchups.
And quickly, the sit of the week, which is Mike Gosicki. Last week he was on the field not that much, believe it or not. I think it was only like around 50% snap percentage or something like that. He ran a total of 18 routes and was only targeted on about 14% of those targets. I mean, on those routes. So he did not have a really great week last week against New England. Now it was against New England. So take that with a grain of salt.
With a grain of salt, yeah.
But he had no fantasy points in the game. He had 3 targets, no catches. I don't know about Mike Gosicki. I think the way they're shifting their offense is away from that 12 personnel package and more to using Waddle a ton in the slot and deep down the field and trying to stretch it out with these wide receivers into a throwing downfield. So I think Gosicki's probably just going to get written out of a lot of game plans, and that's mostly why I would sit him this week. He's also facing Buffalo, which is not an easy matchup, so I would just sit Gosicki this week.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's disgusting, like Gosicki against Buffalo.
It could go horribly wrong.
Yeah. I mean, he could have a decent week, but I don't expect him to do anything crazy. I wouldn't start him.
Yeah, me neither. There you go. Starts and sits week 2 in the books. I can't believe we're already getting into week 2. Nitty gritty starts tonight. Enjoy your Thursday night football. Tomorrow we got trade targets. We're going to tell you all the guys to get. So enjoy football. Have a good night, guys.
Later.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.